Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Caspian and I read a lot of books. Right now, I want to apologize to, I want to apologize to everyone that I follow on BookTube. I haven't been on YouTube for maybe a week and a half or something, maybe more, because there is a series on Netflix here. I think it's like a European or Swedish problem, but there's a series that I enjoy, and it has a lot of seasons and it's going away after Valentine's Day. So right now when I record this, it's the 11th of February. So I'm kind of prioritizing that show right now to get through it one last time before they remove it entirely. So I haven't, that has kind of ate up my watching YouTube videos time. So I will be back. I will watch everything that I have missed, and I look forward to it. So that also means I don't read that much like the last couple of days, and in the next couple of days I will probably have a hard time prioritize reading. Which is not, it doesn't feel that good because I have a lot of books that I want to read and I want to read them before they have to go back to the library. As you know, I'm a library rat. So is there a better word than library rat? I'm not that fond of that word. But anyway, today I'm going to talk about 3 books. One 5-star, one 4-star. No, yeah, 1 5-star, 1 3-star, and 1 DNF. So I'm gonna start with this one. So this is now I'm into my February TBR, just so you know. Because I was like, haven't I talked about this before? And I have, because yeah, I talked about it in my last video. So this is the Swedish version of, I think it's The Lost Bookshop. Yeah, The Lost Bookshop by E.V. Woods. So in this book we follow Opaline, Martha and Henry and a few other people. So we follow 2 timelines, and I do enjoy those kind of books. I like 2 timelines, but I only like them if the ending ties it all together in a good way, because I've read some books where the ending is confusing and where there are too many differences in, especially if you follow a character now and then. But in this book we follow Opaline in the we follow Opaline, I think it says here, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna... Yeah, we follow Opaline in the 1920s, right? So let's see how much I remember, because I did really enjoy this book. How much do I remember? I think I need to sit on it for a while. But so we follow Opaline in the 1920s. And so this is a story that I think I cried more than I laughed or felt happy. And yeah, so I'm getting the timelines mixed up, because we follow Martha here and now, and she has left an abusive relationship. And she comes to Dublin, I think. I think one of the things that I didn't really enjoy, now that I'm thinking about it, is that it was hard to decipher where they were, because the descriptions of like the world around them weren't that intricate. It was more focused on the dialogue and the story. So I did have a hard time to follow where they were, unless a specific chapter said Paris 1921, something like that. I had especially a hard time following it in this, like in present day with Martha, because the description of her at first made me think that she was, it actually was 1920 as well. Mainly because, well, I don't know really why, but she just felt like she was from that era, and a lot of the things around her felt like that. And then when they had cell phones, I was like, they had cell phones? Is this a fantasy? And so I was kind of confused by that fact, but I did enjoy the story. And so we follow Martha in present day. She has left an abusive relationship, come to Dublin, and she has started, so she has really low self-esteem. And she doesn't feel like she's worthy of anything. She doesn't feel like she's afraid of books, like someone taught her that she can't read, but she can read. So she has a lot of unresolved trauma that we don't really get to see why. So the author describes how she's feeling in every moment when she's doing things, and that makes kind of sense. But there are some things in this book that I wish we had gotten the answer to, like why is she afraid of books? Because she's afraid of books, or like picking up a book, and when she sees books on a shelf, she feels like, I can recognize the feeling of like trembling and being like, oh shit, oh crap. And it's not really, you don't really get to understand why that is. So that kind of bothered me a little bit towards the end. That wasn't resolved. So Martha starts to work with this for this elderly lady that has like a townhouse or something, and she works for her, helping her get make breakfast and clean the house. And there's something kind of weird about the house. She has this little room where she lives in like on the basement level, and it starts to grow trees in it. So it's a little like a magical setting in this book, because we are looking for a lost bookshop. And one day Martha meets Henry, or rather she has this little window that I imagine is like up here somewhere on street level. So he walks around for a long time outside of that window that faces to an empty lot. And so she opens the window and she's like, excuse me, people are living here, could you just not? And he's very sorry, etc., etc. And then he kind of falls for her. He's intrigued by her, and he wants to see her again. And so they start to investigate something called the Lost Bookshop, that he's investigating this lost bookshop, and he's investigating the like his job is to find rare books and to find rare, like solve mysteries within the book world, like the literary world. So he's very intrigued by this lost bookshop that is supposed to be on this empty lot next to where Martha lives. So they try to investigate this, and at the same time there's a lot happening with her ex that comes to town, and she's trying to get the courage to start studying something and getting her life back on track. And then Opaline in the 1920s, we follow her alongside all of this, and she is kind of running away from her family because her brother wants her to marry. So in her family, her dad is gone, her mother is alive, and she has an older brother that's like 20 years older than her, and he's kind of the man of the house. So he wants her to marry a rich friend of his so that she can solve the family's economical problems. She doesn't want to do that. She wants freedom. So she escapes. She just takes off one day and she goes to Paris. So, and in Paris she starts to work at this small little bookshop with a woman, and a woman that is actually a lesbian, and she and her partner has this bookshop together, and they have like this oasis for or like safe space for artists and queer people, which is that's very wonderful to read about. So she gets to see this whole new world opening, and she starts also to work with rare books. So she helps this owner of the bookshop to find rare books and to sell books, and then she has to flee because her brother finds her where she is, so she has to flee from there, and so she ends up in Dublin. And she stumbles upon this, well, not actually, because she's a friend in Paris is supposed to James Joyce. So there's a lot of like literary figures in this book. So James Joyce knows someone that has a bookshop in Dublin. So he telegraphs, like they did back then. He telegraphs this friend of his that he's gonna send Opaline to him. That she's gonna please get her a job for you and let her stay with you until she gets on her feet. It's dangerous for her here, or something like that. But when she gets to Dublin, she finds out from the son of this bookshop owner that the bookshop owner has passed away several months ago. But this son that has closed down the bookshop and doesn't really know what to do with it, he lets Opaline stay there, and they make a deal. So she can open up that bookshop again. It has been an antique and curious. Is that a word in English? In Swedish, it's curiosa. In English, I don't know what you call like knickknacks. It's been like a different kind of store, not focusing on books, but kind of antique store. But she wanna open it up as a bookshop. So that's kind of the backstory of both Opaline and Martha, and then we follow their different timelines as they try and could go on with their lives. And there's a lot of heartache, there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of there's a lot of different things happening. And I didn't really expect this book to show us how women fared in the mental institutions back then in the 1920s, 30s, and even 40s. It's a really sad story when we follow Opaline's timeline, and we also follow how these two are connected. And I did like the ending of this book. So the more I talk about it, the more I realize what I actually liked about this book. At first I could just remember the things that bothered me, which is most often the case when I think about books afterwards. So I think I gave this book a 5-star, but I want to give it a 4-star because there are actually things that do bother me with it. So I am mainly bothered by the things that were unresolved. And I'm also bothered by the lack of environmental description that made me not really understand where they were, because an address doesn't tell me which town or city they are in, and when they travel here and there, it doesn't really tell me anything because they didn't really. When they described surroundings, they mainly focused on the buildings and not the main surroundings. And it was a bit poor in that aspect. That's a Swedish expression, that when something is poor in description. So I think I'm gonna give this a 4-star. Yeah. So the next book is the one I most recently finished, and it's Beautiful Creatures, the 4th book. I think the English title is Beautiful Redemption, and in Swedish it's just called Beautiful Creatures, book 4, The Last Trial, but in Swedish, Sista prövningen. So in this is the last book in this series, so now I've finished the series, guys. So in this series we follow Lena and Ethan, and they're kind of definitely love story. So this is a YA. It says here in Swedish, ung, ungdom. That's the word for young adult, ungdom. And so we follow Lena and Ethan, and Lena is, I don't know the English word for it, but she's like a spellcaster or something. She has magical powers. Ethan is a human being, and I don't want to talk too much about this book because I don't want to spoil anything for you. I would say that it does connect things in a good way. This was probably, I had higher hopes for it because the third book was the least favorite so far, I think. And this fourth book is my least favorite so far. Half of it I enjoyed, half of it I didn't enjoy. The first half of it I was like, why am I reading this? Do I really want to know the ending so badly that I'm reading this? Really. So I give this a 3-star because if the book would have continued as the first half was written, I would have given it like a 1.5 or 2-star. If it would have been, if the whole book would have been written as the second half, I would have given it a 4-star. So I think a 3-star is kinda, it's a good rating for this book. So I did not enjoy the first half because of how it was written, and it was written from Ethan's perspective. So and his mind is just so, it's like stream of conscious, and his conscious is just so, he overthinks, he over-explains, and there was just so much from his point of view that I was like, come on. It felt like nothing was happening, even though things were happening, but it felt like nothing was happening because we were so much in his head and his thoughts about everything, like everything that happened, like it felt like every step he took, he needed to rethink it and retell it, and I had to relive it from 4 different perspectives, because it was like every time he did something, he was like, Amma is gonna think this, Lena was gonna think that, Link is gonna have this, that. He was like going through all of the people in his life every time he did something. And then we get to the second half of the book with Lena's perspective, and she doesn't do that. And that's when I realized, oh, it's him. It's not, because in the other 3 books, it had been, I recognized this from the other 3 books, and it had gotten like progressively worse for each book, and this is when I realized it's because we have so much of Ethan's perspective in all of the books. But when we have Lena's perspective, she of course she second guesses things, and she's afraid, and she has emotions about things, but she's not as much in her mind. She's more like, we're gonna do this, you know, even if it doesn't work, we have to try, and this is what we're gonna do. And she sticks to it because of her love for Ethan and her love for her family, etc. So I liked her point of view better. And then in the absolute last of the book, like a small snippet at the end, we get back to Ethan's perspective. So it's divided up into 3 parts. Part 1, with chapters in between. Thank Lord, thank the goddess, you know, because so it's divided up into 3 parts. So in the last part of the book, we get back to Ethan's perspective, and it wasn't that bad, mainly because I had understood that, okay, it's his perspective I'm not fond of, so I had a bit of, I felt for him a little bit more, and I could have oversight with some things that he did and said, and how he experienced things. And it was also reaching the end, and the last part had like a clear purpose more than the first part of the book. And I know that the first part of the book is also, it's also about him being so confused, and that of course doesn't help, you know. And in the last part of the book, he's not so confused anymore. He has a clear purpose and a clear direction, and that helps. But it was still, I think, it was definitely the least favorite in this series. So the first book was I think it was like progressively like that. I don't know my rating, but I think the first and the second was neck to neck maybe. And then the third book was not that wonderful, and then I had high hopes for this one, and it was less wonderful. So yeah, 3 star for this. So a 4 star and a 3 star, not a 5 star. No 5 star this week. And then I'm gonna talk about this that I DNF'd. So this is Always Looking Up: The Adventures of an Incurable Optimist by Michael J. Fox. I did not see the optimism in this one. I read half and then I gave up. And the first half that I did read, I actually skimmed, not skipped, but I skimmed through it. Like when I went to university, I learned like a studying technique where you read the pages like this. So you read like one word in each row and then you have the context. And that's kind of what I did a lot of the times, because it was just so... It felt like nothing happened, and but I just didn't like it, okay? So let me tell you, okay. The first book that he wrote, Lucky Man, I adored. I loved it. I have it. I got a signed card in the book. Like, the book isn't signed, but I did write him once upon a time, and I got a signed card, like a personalized card from him, and it was wonderful. So it's there, and I treasure it. And when I found out this year that he has, or last year, that he has another book, I was like, oh, I need to read it. Oh my lord. And it was gonna be like a continuation of that one. So the first book was written like with a timeline, like from when he was a young boy until the end of the book, like the present time of the book back then. And he mixed everything in, like family, work, faith, and everything in his life. It was like woven together in a wonderful way that let you follow his life and understand every aspect of it. This book, however, is divided up into parts. So the first part is, I think the first part is work. Yeah, work. And then the second part is politics. The third part is family. The fourth part is faith. I did not get to those parts, family and faith, because the first part of work was kinda interesting, because I did want to know what he did. I know that he had like a foundation. I've been following him on social media as much as you can, and I've been keeping tabs on him because he's one of my favorite actors of all time. I'm a huge Back to the Future nerd, and I have seen all of his movies, like every single one of his movies and series that has been released here in Sweden or Europe. So I did have high hopes, because I loved the first book, but even more so I wanted to know what had happened to him and how he had continued to live on with Parkinson's disease. So in the first part of the book we follow his work. So we jump from him doing acting to like phasing out acting because of his Parkinson, and he coming up with his foundation and working with that. And I enjoyed those aspects, but I think I would have enjoyed it more if it had been more interwoven with everything else, like more of a timeline, because it was so much focus on the work. But that's not even the part that bugged me. I went into this book knowing it was going to be about his work and then his politics, and then I knew some of it beforehand, so that didn't really bother me. What did bother me was all the name dropping, and that like there were so many jumps from times and places to the next times and places with the only common denominator between everything that he was telling the reader about was who he had been there with, who had inspired him to do what, and how he had been helped by them. And it sounds wonderful, right? But it's like, he's not just talking about like meeting a person once and being inspired by them. I don't know, it just bothered me how much name dropping and how much focus it was on status and the importance of these people. And I felt it was more a focus of the status that he gained and how he viewed these people, more than what their disability that was supposed to be the thing that inspired him and how they dealt with their disabilities. It was more focused on how famous they were and then the disability. In this setting, I would have expected it to be the other way around, because it was supposed to be how they dealt with the disability that mattered. And yet we got to know everything about these famous people that inspired him, and not about the people that also had a disability that wasn't famous. It was just a little bit skewed, and I didn't enjoy it. And he could talk about, almost like he was talking about his idol every time he mentioned a famous person. And I was just reading like, this is so unnecessary. This has nothing to do with why he was inspired to do the work that he does. It has no other meaning than to show the reader that he has a relationship with these rich people. And that view, that type of writing continued into the next part, which was the politics, and that's kind of where I dozed off, you know. So during the first part of the book, I was still intrigued. I was getting a little bit like, why is he focusing so much on this and not on this? He's supposed to be about his work, not his starstruckness, you know. And then, but there were parts where I just skimmed through because I didn't really enjoy his, no. And then as the second part with the politics, there were even more to skim through, because it was like this event and then this event and these important people, and with way too little focus on why it's in the book, you know. So I didn't get through the second part of the book completely, and I was looking at the pages and I was like, I can't. I was like, so at first I was gonna just skip the political, the last section of the political part of this book and jump into family, and then I let it rest for a couple of days, and I didn't feel the urge to pick it up. I felt like, ugh, every time I looked at it. I had been so disappointed, and I was like, I don't even, no. So I haven't read the second half of the book because I just don't have it in me. It was so bad. The focus of the book wasn't what it was supposed to be, and it wasn't about him always looking up and the adventures of an incurable optimist. No, this is not advertised very well. The cover has nothing to do with the content of the book. So I DNF'd it. Yeah. So yeah, I'm so disappointed. I think there's like a third book by him or coming out or something, and I'm not gonna read it. I'm not gonna read it. I might, if there's a third book, I might look at it at the library, if it is at the library at some point. But I don't want to, like this I put on the list for it, like the waiting list before even looking at it. But I won't do that again with any book of his, because I want to see first how it's divided. because I think the two main reasons I didn't like this book was that it was divided into these categories instead of just interwoven. I think I prefer an interwoven book with like a timeline. And then the second part was I don't care about these people. I don't care. I want to know. I wanted to know how they inspired him. Of course, it's good to know how they helped him, but please, I wanted him to focus on the work, not the people. It was like he was just. It was like he had promised every person that he met that had a couple of bucks and put them in his foundation, that he was like, yeah, I'm gonna write a book and you're gonna be in it. This is gonna be in my book. This event is gonna be in my book and I'm gonna focus all on you, dude. Something like that. So the book is like just those moments after one after another. And I can talk about this book and how much I didn't enjoy it forever. But I'm not going to. I have done for too long. So, thank you for watching. I'm gonna log off. I'm gonna read some of the book that I am reading currently, and later today I'm gonna return these books to the library. So I will see you in my next video. Hopefully that will be the January wrap-up, because I'm kind of curious actually to see how January went. I haven't really summarized it for myself yet either, so I'm gonna enjoy that. So yeah, have a lovely day, happy reading, and I will see you in my next video. Xingling!